There are several segmenters found in Denari: name segmenter, gift segmenter, pledge segmenter, sponsored name segmenter, and others. Segmenters are query tools that allow you to segment your data based on filters, and they give you a much expanded set of filters compared to the basic reports. There are a few rules that you first need to know to work with segments. First, segments produce results based on their type. For example, Gift segmenter uses gift characteristics as filters and outputs gift information. So you can filter on things like gift date, appeal codes, fund codes, etc., things that are associated with a gift record. Knowing this helps you determine where you need to go to produce your report. Second, you only use the filters that you need. All of the segmenters and most reports in Denari start with all records. So for example, if you want a list of all your gifts, you can create a gift segment and use no filters. If you then only want those gifts in a specific date range, you will use only that filter. Since you're starting with all gifts, you're reaching into the bucket and pulling out only those that fit in that date range. Let's say that we want to get a list of gifts given to our fundraising banquet in a date range. Remember that appeal codes represent our fundraising efforts, so we'll be filtering on that appeal code. We know that an appeal code is a characteristic of a gift. There may be basic reports that will give us what we want, but if not, we can turn to Gift Segmenter. To get there, we'll click on the Reports button on the left, and then on Query Tools, and then finally Gift Segmenter. Here we see a list of segments that someone has already created. We will be able to set up our segment and save it for future use if needed. And we'll begin by adding a new one. The first thing we need to do is give it a description and a segment code. These fields are just like all other records you create in Denari. The description is for you and the code is for Denari. So the description can be anything you want, but the code must be unique. You can't have two gift segments with the same code. And I'm just going to use training video 334 here. And in the code field, I'm going to use my initials and then 334. And in this case, the 334 has no great significance. Below, we see 4 sections containing filters or filter options, and then there are 3 near the top. I'll continue our quest to find the gifts to our banquet in a date range. I know that the gift date filter is in the batch section, so I'll expand that. Since I'm using a date range, I'll choose between as the operator. And then I'll enter a date range in the low and high value fields. Now I'll expand the appeal campaign section. Since I'm looking for gifts with only one appeal code, I'll choose equal to as the operator. Now in the low value field, I can click the search icon and then search for and select the appeal code that I want. I'm just going to go grab one here at random. Now, when I run this segment, I'll get all gifts to the banquet, this appeal code, in that date range. Let's back up and look at some of the operator options. Back in the gift date field, we have options like greater than, not greater than, less than, not less than. We also have relative date options like this year, this week, this month, last year, etc. Relative means that they're relative to the day we run the segment. These are helpful when you want to run this segment frequently or use it with another report, which we will look at later. For example, you might want to get a report on the first of each month showing the gifts to the banquet that came in last month. That could be set up as a memorized report that runs automatically on the first using this gift segment. The date range could be set to last month here so that we don't have to change it each month. And when you use a relative date range, you don't need to put anything in the low value or high value field. Denari will know automatically what date range you're looking at. The operator field in the appeal code field is a little different because it's not looking for a date. When we choose between, for example, we can select a code in the low value field and another one in the high value field, and Denari will then find all of the appeal codes that fit in that range, either alphabetically or numerically. For example, if we select an appeal code like BBC in the low value field and select HVG in the high field, Denari will give us gifts to all the appeal codes that fall alphabetically in that range. The same is true if you're using numbers instead of letters. Sometimes you want to find gifts for several appeal codes that are not sequential. In other words, they're not in a range. They may just be several codes that you want to pick out of a bunch of codes. For that, you can use the in operator. In means in the list. There's a special syntax that is needed when you enter them in the low value field. Let me take a break here and I'll enter these three values for you. Notice that I'm entering the codes, not the description of the appeal code, but the actual code. They're surrounded by single quotes and separated by commas with no spaces. So you'll need in and then only the codes that you want in the low value field. And I use 3 codes here, but you can use pretty much an unlimited number there if you want to. Sometimes you want to find gifts for several appeal codes that are not in the range or not in the in between, etc., etc. And that also gives you the ability to do that. So you see we have here not between, we have not in, and a lot of other reversal of those operators. And so that gives you then the ability to get everything except for that code or set of codes. Most of the filters in the batch, the appeal campaign section here, the fund and department section are fairly self-explanatory once you understand how the operators work. And by the way, all of your filter conditions must have operators. You must tell Denari what to do with the low and high value fields. There are some filters in this detail section, however, that we do need to explain. And the first one is the amount field. This seems simple, and it is, as long as you remember that the gift segment filters on gift data, not giving information. This field cannot be used to add up a donor's gifts and then compare them to the filter. This is filtering on the gift amount. So if you want a list of gifts that are exactly $50, you could use equal to and then put 50 in the low value field. You don't need anything in the high value field because you're using equal to. Or you could use between 50 and 500 and you'll find gifts then in that range. But again, it's looking at the specific amounts of each gift. The next 2 fields, charitable and sales related, are noteworthy only because they are blank. If you remember back to the beginning, we said that if you put no filters into the segment, you will get all gifts. So by default, these fields are blank, which means that your output by default will include non-charitable and sales-related gifts as well as charitable and non-sales related gifts. You're getting all gifts by default. You may remember from gift entry that there is an anonymous checkbox there. It allows you to make that gift anonymous, but really only affects the field module. When someone logs into the field module, those gifts won't show the name and address info for that gift. However, you can use that field as a filter here. Check the box in the gift record to make the gift anonymous, and then you can get a list of all the gifts that are either anonymous or all the gifts that are not anonymous here. Split type refers to the type of gifts, either hard, soft credit or covered. And again, by default, you will get gifts of all types unless you select something here. So if you want just hard gifts, you can choose equal to as the operator and then put a number in the low value field. The number represents the gift type. To see those numbers, click the little question mark here. And you can see that the numbers correspond to the type of gift. So just simply use the number there. Also, you may remember from the gift record that there is a gift code field there. It allows you to type in anything you want to code the gift or the split. And you can use that here then as a filter. The tribute code field allows you to get a list of gifts based on the tribute records. And again, you can use a range of tribute codes or equal to get just one tribute, etc. The pledge segment field allows you to link to a previously created pledge segment. What does that do for you? Let's say that you want to find out who gave gifts to pledges that were created between April 1st and May 31st. You could create the pledge segment then to find that list of pledges and then link it here. When you run the gift segment, Denari will give you the gifts related to those pledges. Why not just get that information from Pledge Segmenter? Remember the rule. Pledge Segmenter gives you pledge information and Gift Segmenter gives you gifts. These fields allow you then to expand the filters available in Gift Segmenter. And finally, the sponsorship type field here allows you to filter on that field from the sponsored name record. Near the top of the page, we have three more filters that don't necessarily fit into a category. First, we find gift letter. As you probably know, each gift can have a letter body selected that gets printed on the default Denari thank you receipt. This field lets you filter on that. You could, for example, get all of the gifts with the banquet letter selected. The adjustment code field refers to gift records that have been reversed using gift reversal, and that's covered in a separate video. This field by default is not including those gifts that have been adjusted. So when I said earlier that a new gift segment will give you all gifts, that wasn't entirely true. The assumption is that most of the time you won't want them included, and so they're filtered out. And most of the time you won't need to change this field. You'll just always run your gift segments set up as you see here. The last field here is state. This one is not quite intuitive. You might think that this is really a name characteristic, but it's not. When the gift is saved, Denari records the state of the donor at the time the donation was made. It now belongs to the gift. So it is a Pennsylvania gift, a Michigan gift, etc., etc. The reason is that donors move. If you want to get a list of donations made from a specific state, if you're using the donor's name address, that report might be different next year, even if you're using the same filters. The reason is that some donors may have moved during that time. You probably won't use this too often, but it's good to understand how it works. When you're ready to get your list of gifts, you'll need to select an output type. As you can see, most of them are spreadsheet type reports, and most of the time you'll choose Excel. The reason is that you're getting a list of gifts. This is not providing a summary. If John Doe gave 10 gifts that meet your criteria, John will be in the output 10 times. So once you have the list of gifts in Excel, you can further manipulate the spreadsheet if needed. Once you've selected the output type, hit Save. Now we see that a number of checkboxes below the output type field have opened up. These allow you to select groups of fields that you want in the output. You may need to experiment with these a little to find out what fields are where, but this does allow you to keep the output to a manageable size. So for example, you might want the batch information, you might want the donor basic information, you want the basic gift information, etc. And so again, these are representing groups of fields of maybe 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 fields that you can choose to include or not include in the output. One note here, because we're getting a list of gifts, Denari won't allow you to run the gift segment with no filters. Some clients could have more than 1 million gifts. Not only will that bog down the servers, but that's just not useful when evaluating your gifts. So you do need some type of filter, usually a gift date range, to make the output smaller. One thing that adds a lot of flexibility to Denari's reports is the ability to link a gift segment to other reports. If you've done the video on Name Segmenter, you saw where you can do that. There are also other options. So let's click on the Reports button here on the left. And then Gifts and Detail Gift Listing. This report produces a list of gifts in PDF format. It's a great report for staff members who are fundraising because it shows them every gift along with the donor's information. It can also be memorized so that it will run automatically when they need it. But what if you want to get only those gifts given to the appeal code we talked about earlier? There is no appeal code filter here, but we do have the gift segment field. You can create the gift segment to identify those gifts and then link it here. It becomes the filter for the report. So now it will only show those gifts given to that appeal code in that date range. And one small tip here, it works best if you put all the filters into the gift segment if you're going to use the gift segment, rather than putting some in the segment and then selecting some others from here. There are other basic reports like this that you'll find on the gifts section or gift page that have the same capability. It greatly expands that report's ability. There are other expanded reports functions like gift summary and export gift data that will be covered in a separate video that also use a gift segment to specify or filter and get only a certain set of gifts. This concludes this video on Gift Segmenter. If you have any questions, please contact tech support through the help button at the top of the Denari page.